Good morning and welcome to Education in Focus, your monthly program presented by the UWI Dodge Group. I am Cleveland Sam, your host. Today's topic, student expulsion, and it promises to be explosive. On the panel, noted Caribbean educator, Principal Marsha Morgan Allen in Kingston, Jamaica. And from St. John's, Antigua, parental activist Marcel Archer Thomas. Good morning, ladies. Thank you for joining me today.
Good morning, Cleveland. Good morning. Thank you.
All right. So, as I said, we're going to be speaking about student expulsion. And it is not every day that you hear about legal issues in education coming to the attention of the media in the Caribbean. However, in recent times, there have been a few high-profile legal matters related to education in the headlines in some Caribbean states. As recent as October this year, there was the case of one Otto Sam, a teacher in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who was first suspended, then transferred to a government department for speaking publicly about the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Then, his service was terminated. A school in Trinidad and Tobago refusing to accept a Muslim student because she wore the hijab. Then, the girl's parents challenged the issue in court and the High Court ruled in their favor. In September this year, two Rastafarian parents were charged and found guilty for homeschooling their children without permission from the Ministry of Education, which is an offense under the Education Act and Regulation Cap 41 of Barbados. And this is in thenationnews.com. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines again, a school suspended, then expelled a student for writing derogatory comments about a teacher in her book. The child's parents challenged the decision in court, and in July 2016, the High Court ruled in the child's favor. What does a school do when a student behaves in a way that embarrasses the teacher, the principal, or the entire school? Just what constitutes embarrassment? Is transferring or expelling a student for disrespect a justifiable punishment? Is it legal for a school to transfer or expel a student? For as long as I can recall, schools in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, my home, have been in the practice of expelling or, quote-unquote, throwing students out of school for various offenses. These range from females who got pregnant, students who repeat a form twice consecutively, students who consistently fight, students who physically abuse teachers. But should a student be expelled for writing a derogatory comment in a book that the teacher has to read? Ladies, my panel, my question to you today. In 2016, are schools in the Caribbean correct? Should schools in the Caribbean still be expelling students? Either of you can weigh in on this, Marsha or Marcel.
An effective school creates a positive climate. Expelling students may not attribute to a positive school climate. However, educators should endeavor to meet the needs of each student. Expulsion, in my mind, should be at a last resort. For example, like some schools in Canada are promoting progressive discipline. This involves the whole school and combines discipline for students to continue their education. This will also present students with opportunities to learn from the choice they make.
In Antigua, there exists a boys' school. It is mainly for boys who have misbehaved sometime before. Research has indicated that most of these boys commit crimes when they get older. One reason given is that there is no structural learning opportunities.
So, Marcel, so this school is basically a dumping ground for bad behaving boys in high school?
I wouldn't use the word dumping, but in layman terms, yes, it could be looked at that, because once you recognize delinquent behavior in students or in boys particularly, because this school is only for boys. It's actually located in Willoughby. And it's in a secluded area, which I don't like, because you're not allowed to come out and, interact with other students. It's like a jail, but
right.
For boys and for of a certain age.
Okay, hold on that point. Let me bring in Marsha here from Jamaica. Marsha, do you think that in 2016 schools should be expelling students?
Definitely, Cleveland, definitely. but with specific justification for such a harsh action. Yes, Marcel, there are opportunities for progressive discipline, but as educators, our first and foremost duty is to ensure the academic success by ensuring that teaching and learning takes place, as well as the safety and health of our charges. Therefore, we cannot allow one student or a gang of students to disrupt our entire process that we have in place. With the increasing level of indiscipline and waywardness in our society that is now filtering over into our schools. And so, if we as school principals see the perceived threat to others in our charge, right, whether it be the students or other employees, then expulsion becomes necessary. So many things are happening on our school compounds now. We have students fighting, stabbing, stealing, disrespecting, and not only to our fellow schoolmates, but also to teachers and us principals and other persons in authority. Just this week in Jamaica, we had issues of a student fighting a teacher. Last week, 2 students were fighting over in St. Thomas, and the teacher tried to quell the disruption, right? One student left, went off the school compound, came back with others who had guns and knives, ready to fight. So this is the kind of situation that we are facing, right? And so, I mean, should they still be expelling? Yes, definitely. But we have systems in place. There's progressive discipline through our deans of discipline that we employ at our schools. And for those schools that are in high violent areas, you know, police officers or safety officers, you know, we have a school safety program. And so they come there, they patrol, they search a student. You know, although the model education bill for the organization of Eastern Caribbean State Division 5 and other education acts for Jamaica, such as Part 2, Section 2930, in Trinidad Part 1, Section 43 to 6, speak to the expectation of students respecting the Code of Conduct guidelines for schools. And the Code of Conduct covers discipline, dress, appearance, health, and safety, among others. So therefore, if our students do not play their part and observe these rules, then we have no choice but to take this harsh action. We also have to be cognizant that when the students break the school rules, some of these rules also hinge on the laws of the land. And so we have a duty to inform law enforcement officers and other authorities governing the welfare of our children. If we keep these wayward students there and they do not intend to change their way, it is setting a bad example for the other students, and we would not want that bad behavior spread to the whole entire school population.
So, Marsha, you speak like a true advocate of student expulsion, but I know our parental advocate, Marcel, totally disagrees with that.
Yes,
but my question is, why aren't there interventions in place to prevent students from getting to the point where there is a need to expel them? Again, Marcel or Marsha, you can weigh in on this question.
Mr. Sam, I just want to make a comment on what the principal said a while ago before answering your question. I'm going to get to the question. I'm glad to hear those things are in place in Jamaica. However, just last week we had a case in Antigua
where it was published by the Antigua Observer newspaper that a teenage boy was sent to the boys' home years ago after being expelled.
He escaped from the boys' home. This child is in danger. He has been facing hardships every single day, whether it's been bullying from other boys at the boys' school. Parents have been making complaints. He has been making complaints, and there's nothing being done. So now this child found a way to escape, and nobody can find him. So are we going to settle that because I want to expel students, and because we don't want them to influence other students? Look at the situation now. We don't know if this child is alive or dead. But to answer,
what should be put in place to prevent students getting to the stage where they are pulling guns, as Marsha said, they are calling the other gang members, they are bringing weapons to school. I mean, certainly these things disrupt the school environment. What can we put in place so that they do not get to that stage?
I completely agree with Marsha's statement in that you should have some disciplinary system in place, like counseling or something, that they can do, or that could take up their time, or you can just turn it positive, so that their minds wouldn't be, because these children, they're not crazy. They have a reason why they're acting out, whether it will be home, whether it will be school, something they have to have. So it's our job as parents, teachers, and principals to come together now and find out what is the problem. Why are you doing this? You acted this way. What happened? Why are you doing? We have to know. The onus is on us, to see why because they're only children.
And okay, okay.
Go ahead, Marcel.
All right. Expulsion is a final resort. And so, yes, there are interventions in place leading up to that final decision to expel them. So we as principals, we do not jump and say the first thing is to expel them, okay? Because before expulsion comes suspension, right? So the laws of the Land and Education Act allows for this kind of intervention, this kind of progressive discipline that Marcel was alluding to, right? So, expulsion is a last resort, but it is also an administrative legal form of discipline. Just like suspension, it requires substantive procedural provisions of due process that must be met, or else we as principals will be faced with a legal challenge. Right?
Well, I want you to hold a point about legal challenge, because we're going to get to that a little later. But just, to support your point in terms and looking at the Education Act 2005 for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, expulsion is actually last point under subdivision 5 of discipline, suspension, and expulsion of students.
Right.
What I'm saying,
sorry. Go ahead, Marcel. I'll continue my point later. Go ahead.
No, what I was saying is that, yes, probably in the act it's last resort, but parents don't feel like that. It's not practiced that way. We don't.
So then, back to Marsha's point, is it that, Marsha, that the principals are not following the procedures that are supposed to be taking place before you get up to expulsion?
Well,
there's the parent saying that in many cases, the only time they hear about the student misbehaving is when they get an expulsion letter.
Well, it would appear that those principals are in breach, because the Education Act speaks to a process. It's clearly stated, right, that if it is that a student has committed some sort of offense, if they have broken the code of conduct, because each school is going to have their own code of conduct, and these are communicated to both parents and students. So therefore, if a student breaches the school rules, right, the principal has the right to suspend that student, and the principal has a right to notify the board and the chief education officer. It is up to the board or the chief education officer to determine, based on the circumstances, if that suspension, which may last between 2 to 10 days, should be extended, right? And whilst the suspension is happening, the student and the parent or parents should be notified immediately that the student has been suspended, and it should be clearly stated why the student has been suspended, what rule that student has breached, right? And a report should be made recording the alleged infraction that was committed, the time, the place, whatever witnesses, previous efforts that were made to remedy the alleged misbehavior. And then this report would then be sent to the Board of Management or the Chief Education Officer. And from there, they will determine if a hearing should be made available to the student and the parent, giving them all the information, allowing them the opportunity to come and let everyone hear their side of the story. And out of that, a decision will be made should the child be reinstated, meaning that they come into the school and some rehabilitation program is put in place. Should the suspension be extended, or based on everything, finally that student has to be expelled. But there is this communication, it depends on the type of infraction that was committed, the level of it, because some of them, you just have to expel them. You can't really go through the suspension rehabilitation process.
All right, Madam Principal. Marcel, just to say once again that based on the Jamaica Education Act that Marsha just spoke about, the St. Vincent Act as well as the OECS Act seem very similar. It
Yes,
says
indeed.
that the student should be suspended for a specific period, and at the end of that time, then the chief education officer can then reinstate the student or can ask that the student be transferred to another school, including a special school such as the one you're referring to. And the final E is that the student be expelled. But Marsha spoke about a rehabilitation program before the expulsion. Do you see this happening in Antigua where you are, Marcel? Any rehabilitation efforts before the students get to the point of expulsion?
If there are any rehabilitation processes, they are not adhered to, and parents are unaware of the processes. Principals are in a position where by the snap of a finger, they will expel students. I feel that before expulsion, parents should be called in. And added to this, expulsion policies should be given to parents before a child is even admitted to a school. To answer your question, Mr. Sam, what can be done? I think that teachers and parents should have a rapport that allows for open discussion. Teachers should be encouraged to communicate with parents as soon as they notice negative behavior. So I would suggest one-on-one meeting with parents, counseling, and so on. I believe early intervention can deter negative behavior.
So I want to take up both you and Marsha on this point, because if we look at one of the cases that came out in St. Vincent in 2013, but the High Court in St. Vincent ruled on it in July this year, of a student who was basically suspended, transferred, and then expelled from the St. Joseph's Convent in Kingstown. And the High Court ruled in the child's favor because, Marsha, those same procedures that you talked about were actually not followed. The parent of the student was not informed about the reason why the student was being expelled. The reason for the suspension in the first place was writing a derogatory comment in a book that the teacher was going to read. I mean, you send home a student for 2 or 7 days for writing a comment in a book. Isn't that something that you can deal with in a more hands-on way in the school? This is a question I'm asking for both of you.
Yes, Cleveland. That situation, those administrators did not follow the Education Act because there are guidelines, and something as minor as that, it is more touching on the emotional aspect of that teacher. And so this is where you have the guidance counselor who should have come in at that point. And the student, should have been made aware, of what the situation is and allowed the opportunity to apologize.
A simple, I thought so, that a simple apology should have sufficed there.
Exactly.
Rather than suspension. Yes,
Exactly.
Marcel?
Because my child should be given the opportunity to present evidence in his defense, including witnesses, as well as the chance to see the evidence against him. To me, my child should be given that chance to say, well, okay, this is why he did this. But sometimes as a parent, you would even try to step in and explain things, because as the principal said, sometimes it really is about the teachers, their emotion at that time. So, but sometimes you go as an adult trying to explain to the teachers, and sometimes it's not even taken seriously.
Right, they're not entertaining your explanations. Yes, Marsha, I'm hearing you.
What sometimes happens to here, is that when we as principals tell the student to go home and come back with their parent, they have this thing where they call rent a parent, where they go down the road.
Rent a parent.
Rent a parent. They go down the road and they get somebody and they come in and that person pretends as though they are the parent of that child. And so the true biological parents or guardians don't even know what was happening because the student has kept that parent in the dark.
Well, Miss Morgan, I feel as though that, you're running a school. You're supposed to know who the parents, who the guardian of that child. The child can't bring anybody. I mean, when you register a child to a school, who do you meet? You don't meet just the child. So you have to know if a parent dies, if the guardian dies, you need to know. You're the school. To me, the onus is on the school to know what is going on with the child. If the child has a problem at school, who do you call?
Right. So we clearly have some issues in terms of the following of the Education Act as they are outlined in terms of the procedures. And the case in St. Vincent, as we said, clearly demonstrates that, because in the end, the High Court ruled in favor of the child that she was wrongly expelled and suspended because the school board did not follow the procedures. In fact, in the Act, the school board does not have the ability, the authority to expel a child. That authority lies in the chief education officer's hand and the chief education officer only. All right, so are we creating potential criminals when we expel students from school with nowhere for them to go? Uneducated, uncertified? Are we creating criminals?
Expelling students from schools in the Caribbean without sending them to an alternative institution to help them deal with their problems can be compared to a one-way ticket to prison. The promise of free and compulsory public education is tarnished. The equal opportunity for all is a farce. This promise has proven to be illusionary and marred by politics, de jure de facto, by class and political disparities. It's my gut feeling that these things happen to the less affluent students in society, since they are the ones that mostly attend public schools. Having a child who is expelled from school is an added problem for parents as well as the child. In the Caribbean system, they are required a transfer from one school to another. Unfortunately, with that record, all hopes are shattered for that child.
Wow, that's a damning statement you're making against the system there, Marcel, but you might be correct. Marsha, before you come in, I want to refer to an article in the UK Guardian newspaper from 2015, which is basically supporting what Marcel is saying. In this particular piece of research, they found that students who are expelled, there's a disproportionately discrimination against persons, first of all, males, Black Caribbean males, and students from the lower strata of society. So my question to you, Marsha, is the system discriminatory against particular sections of students?
No, Cleveland. Fortunately, the Education Act and the education regulations cover everybody. So when it comes to discipline, every student, right, is governed by these rules, not depending on your socioeconomic background, right? And so the Act and the regulations allow for, if a student has been expelled, it allows for the Ministry of Education, right, to place that child at another school. And so the parents have that right to request of the ministry that their child be placed in another school. Of course, the principal has to receive a report with all the details leading up to this case, under confidential cover, of course. At least that principal is aware, of what has transpired. And so, because, there may be circumstances at the other school that led to the student's behavior. So maybe this new school would see a change in that student. So it is all fair to the student and to the principal that they are made aware of the circumstances of that case. Now, if the parent or the student does not wish to go to another school, because some of them may be so advanced, almost finished in fifth form, that student will be allowed to either sit their exams only without attending classes, either back at that school or at another institution, right? And so they're not left on their own. They can, if they have the ambition, they can continue with their education by registering privately elsewhere. For pregnant girls who have been expelled, the government has schools in place just for pregnant girls, and there they also get a well-rounded education because they're also counseled. They also have parenting seminars to help them.
Okay, very good.
Right? So, everything.
All right, so ladies, this has been a very interesting discussion, but unfortunately we are out of time, so I'm giving you 30 seconds to give your final take.
Okay, remember that it's a student who has forfeited his or her right to such a privilege of free education when they breach their own constitutional rights by disobeying these laws. And so we as principals cannot afford to jeopardize the life or sacrifice the education of the remaining students, as they are our responsibility.
Okay, Marsha, I hear you loud and clear. Marcel, parental perspective, 30 seconds.
Okay, as I said before,
To sum up my argument, Mr. Sam, the laws must be enacted and the focus must always be on the benefit of the child. Expelling a child is impeaching on the child's right.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies. This has been a very interesting discussion, and we will continue next time on Education in Focus. My name is Cleveland Sam. It has been great being your host. Take care and goodbye.
thank you. Goodbye.